Right, I'll try not to test your memory too much this afternoon, but we'll see how we go. You've actually just got back from tour with a band called Magnet, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what can you tell me about them?
Well, it's a new group. I'm trying to think what to tell you about them. I recorded with them about a year ago, and not with the idea of touring, but when we were finished, I really liked the album a lot, and I thought if I toured with them, they might get a little more attention. They're from New Jersey and Washington, D.C., and no, it's hard to explain. A lot of people, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but a lot of people are saying it kind of sounds velvety.
Yeah.
Although, to me, that's always a crock. I can never detect that when they say that.
Fair enough, yeah. All right, well, we'll go right back to the beginning. What were the circumstances surrounding you joining the Velvet Underground?
The guys had gotten a job to play at a high school in New Jersey, and their current drummer, Angus, didn't like the idea of playing for money, so he quit. And they needed someone fast. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So Sterling, who I had known since I was 10, knew that I was banging away on drums in my room. So he suggested that I fill in this one, and it just kept going.
Do you remember what it was that first attracted you to the drums?
I guess mostly Bo Diddley and an African drummer I really like, Olatunji.
Mm-hmm.
And the Stones and the Beatles. I really liked both of them, and it was much more fun to be doing something rather than just sitting and listening.
Yeah, I mean, in those days, too, a female drummer in a rock and roll band was a pretty rare thing.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah. I guess for people that weren't around at the time, and considering the legend status that the band holds now, it would be hard to fathom just how unsuccessful commercially the band was at the time. But that was the case, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, completely unsuccessful.
How vivid are your memories of recording that first album? I believe the conditions in the studio were quite primitive.
Yeah, in those days, conditions just about anywhere, I guess, were primitive, which I like. I always like more basic sounding stuff. But we had like 8 hours worth of money, and that's how long we had to record it, and we pretty much just blasted off and got it done.
Yeah. And Nico coming in to do some vocals, how did that come about?
I presume that Andy suggested she sing a few songs with us. I don't know for sure, but I think probably he suggested that.
Yeah, and how did the band take it at the time?
Well, we must have liked the idea or we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, true. You remember your first meeting with Andy Warhol?
Yes, I do, in fact, because at the time I, of course, knew who he was, and this was my first meeting with a celebrity. He came to see us just after the show we had done in the high school. They got a job to play in a little coffee house in the village, and you weren't allowed to play drums there because it was too loud and they'd get complaints. So the guys said, well, just come and play tambourine, which I did, and a mutual friend brought Andy down to see us because Andy at the time was looking for a band to do his multimedia, for lack of a better word, show that he had an idea for.
Right. And looking back, what direction do you think the band might have taken without his influence, had you not met up with him?
Oh, the same.
The same way?
Yeah. We weren't influenced musically by Andy.
No.
That wasn't his thing at all.
Right. Tell us a bit about the Exploding Plastic Inevitable shows, a typical show and perhaps a typical audience reaction, if you can remember back.
Well, we very often used to calculate how good we were that night by how many people we drove out the door. And I very often, while we were playing, would wish I could be in the audience to see this, because especially at the time, it was so completely different. No one was doing all this light show stuff, and slides and movies and everything. It was a very new idea, you know.
Yeah.
And not having ever seen it from the audience, of course, I can't say what that was like, but I think it must have been quite something to behold.
Yeah. What were the reviews like in general?
Usually pretty bad. We were called in a variety of names.
Yeah. Just going back to that first album, it's one of those rare albums which, well, to me, never seems to date. I mean, you listen to it now, you still get the feeling that you're listening to something new and exciting. Did you feel at the time that you'd created something that would last like that?
Oh, no.
No?
No. I don't think any artist who's in any medium thinks that when they're working on something. You just hope that your, what's the word for people in your own time? Your constituents?
Yeah.
Will like it. But I don't think anybody thinks, in 20 years people will still like this.
No. You're talking about the primitive nature of the recording surroundings. Many feel that it was the raw energy of those early records that made them so special. Do you think that energy would have been lost had you had the recording technology that's available now back then?
Not the energy, but I think the resulting sound would have been. Of course, you know, it would have been. You know, having the opportunity to do overdub after overdub, for instance, takes away the liveness.
Spontaneity, yeah.
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 And to me, that's a detriment to rock and roll. Maybe not to symphonic music, but I think it is to rock and roll.
How did you feel that the CD reissues came up? Were you happy with those?
Yeah, very.
Yeah. The band never really seemed intent on the time on sort of wanting to be rock stars as such. Would that be a fair comment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, we certainly didn't say, well, let's be repulsive. But the idea was that we all really, really thought the music was quite something, and if other people didn't, well, too bad, you know.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, was a lack of success a source of frustration for you at times?
Not a lack of success, I don't think, as much as a lack of support from as usual, the record company.
Yeah.
We many times had people tell us they loved the band but couldn't find the records, and you know, that was the case. That was the problem. We had a good following after a while, you know.
Yeah.
But if they can't buy the records, well, then you can't pay the rent.
Yeah, you're probably the best kept secret in rock and roll at the time.
Yeah.
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 Do you think that some kind of record company support and obviously the success that could have followed would have prolonged the band's existence?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sure that Lou, being the songwriter, for instance, and being, let me try and explain what I want to say. My tenure in the band, in my mind, this was not my career, you know. I wasn't thinking, okay, now I'm a musician. I was basically having fun, and to have it end was sad because we had a good time, but it wasn't as horrific, or whatever the word is, as it was for Lou and John, because both of them knew damn well they're musicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And now I've gotten off the track. I don't know what you...
No, you're fine.
You know, to me it was sad because we had a good time, and these guys were my friends. But that was just, oh well, I guess now I have to get a job. But to Lou and John, and I won't speak for any of them, but I think that probably it was a much more major disappointment to them.
In later years, the band became, I guess you could say, a little bit more selective as to which cities and what type of venues that you were playing. In hindsight, do you think that was probably as a detriment to your following, to expanding your following? I
don't know that it's a true case. What do you mean?
Reading up on the band, on the history, I read that, I think you refused to play in New York for a while, is that right?
Oh, we never played in New York.
Never played in New York?
Yeah. No, I mean, not never. A few times, but it was not on our high list of places to play.
Yeah. What were the best places for you?
Boston was definitely always the best.
Yeah.
Philadelphia was good.
How did LA audiences take to the band?
The audience took to it fine. We only went there twice, I guess, because the coast at the time was in such a completely different mindset, and in those it cost a lot to get there, it cost a lot to stay. We didn't do tours like people do now. I don't think anyone did. We would go off for the weekend at the most.
Yeah, in short spurts.
Yeah.
Something also which isn't too well known is that you didn't actually play on the Loaded album.
No.
No. Would that be one of your great regrets?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it a lot. More of a regret that I think about often is the lousy recording of Heroin, which always, is a very source of sadness to me. But there were at least a few songs on Loaded that needed me.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could deny that, yeah. We weren't fortunate enough to witness the reunion shows a few years back down here.
Yeah.
How was the feeling for you to be back on stage again with those guys?
Oh, it was great. We had a great time. We really had a good time. Just being together, not even just playing, but just being together.
Just being together again, yeah.
Everybody being friends again.
Was there at any stage any tentativeness about actually doing it?
Very slight. When we first actually started verbalizing this idea, everybody was excited about it. Everybody wanted to do it. We did get together in February, as I recall, of that year. Just quickly, we rented a studio in the city just to play together, since we hadn't in 30 years or something, and make sure we thought it was going to sound like it had to.
Yeah.
And, immediately, with the very first song we tried, we knew it was still there.
So I guess any fear you might have had about tarnishing the legend probably would have disappeared with that.
Well, I had no fear of tarnishing the legend.
Yeah.
The guys were a little jumpy, but I think that's the male problem.
Yeah. The passing of Sterling would have affected you quite deeply. How can you best sum up for us what actually he meant to the band?
Oh, boy. God, that's difficult. I think I've never thought of Sterling in terms of what he meant to the band, but rather what he meant to me.
Yeah.
Since, as I said, I've known him since I was 10. He's like my brother.
Yeah.
Well, more than my brother, really, in a way. And, it's hard to explain your feelings towards Sterling if you're someone who really knew him well.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
He could drive you crazy with some of his ways, but in fact, those were the things that actually were endearing about him.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, I don't know how to explain it.
No, fair enough. Yeah, okay. Were there any thoughts of actually continuing on after the reunion, perhaps in terms of recording? Was that ever bandied about?
We had plans. We were going to tour in America. We were going to do MTV Unplugged. We were going to tour Japan. We had lots of plans.
Right. So what actually happened there?
Well, of course, we got into a fight.
As all good bands do.
Which is a great sadness to me. I would, my vote was, well, let's just not do anything. Let's, instead of becoming enemies again, let's not ruin this by arguing over MTV of all things.
Yeah.
But, that argument didn't work.
Yeah. Just a little bit about your solo work. It tends to feature you more on guitar more so than percussion. Which role as a musician do you prefer?
Well, it's kind of fun playing guitar.
Yeah.
The reason I when I started doing my own stuff, the reason I went to guitar is because I really hate singing drummers, and I felt that if I was going to be the singer, I had to play guitar, not play drums.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I started to do, but I enjoy it a lot. I really do. But it's also been fun playing drums again with Magnet.
Yeah. You got the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, actually.
Also a bit of a desire to get into production work. Is that Any
Yeah,
closer
I've done a few things. I've done 3 or 4 albums, and I really enjoy it a lot. And my problem is I don't know how to get the word around that I'm interested in doing that.
Right.
If someone happens to read something or hear something, then fine, but that's the height of my promotion so far.
What are some of the ones you've done?
I've done one for Half Japanese, and I did Paul. Yeah, have you ever heard of Paul Kay and the Weathermen?
Rings a bell.
Yeah, they're from Kentucky, and they have quite a underground following apparently. And I did their last one. It's called Love is a Gas. And the first one I did, actually, I do my own, of course. The first one I did was for Sonny Vincent, who wound up being my guitar player in my band. And he's the first person who asked me to produce. So I owe him a debt, I guess.
He got the ball rolling for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe you're also involved in a recent John Cale recording, too.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple, actually. His last album, I play on a couple of tracks, and they've also just released the, I don't know what you would call it, soundtrack or whatever, to Eat and Kiss, 2 Andy films.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, the recording is from a show we did in France a live show from France doing that. And that's just been released.
And recording-wise from yourself, anything coming up in the near future?
Well, luckily, yes. I just had an offer from an old dear friend of Sterling's to put up the money for my next album.
Terrific.
Which I'm really thrilled about, because I'm determined to avoid record companies this time around, and of course that means trying to find money, which isn't easy. So this is great. I'm really, really grateful and very happy about this.
Oh, that's great news. And at what stage is that? I mean, are the songs ready?
No, this came about during the Magnet tour. This person lives in San Diego and came to the show and announced this, that he would like to back my next record. So this is just in the very beginning stage.
Oh, that's great news. I will look forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah. So, did any of your children grow up to be Velvet Underground fans?
Yeah, they like some and don't like some.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly don't listen to it constantly.
Yeah. Any of them musically inclined?
My youngest, who is 16, took up guitar about 1.5 years ago, and he's really gotten damn good. He dove right in and, played for 8 hours a day for 6 months,
Wow.
And he's really gotten very good. And I'm at the point where now when I listen at his door, I can't tell if it's a record or him.
Uh-huh. He's on the way.
Yeah.
So, to what extent, if any, do you listen to today's music?
Very little.
Yeah.
You know what the radio's like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I don't know what radio's like in Australia, but here it's horrible.
Yeah.
So I haven't listened to the radio actively for 20 years or more. So I don't hear anything that way. And really the only new stuff that I get to hear is if people send me something.
Uh-huh.
I live in a small town which does not have a record store that you can go in and find anything other than, Michael Jackson or rap. So I can't get things that way. So I don't really hear a hell of a lot that's new, unless it's, a hit, which in which most cases it's not worth hearing.
No, that's true. You wouldn't be missing much there. Just before I let you go, Mo, plans for the remainder of 97?
Well, to get this recording project going,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be doing another little tour with Magnet in the Midwest, the South and the Midwest in September. And I was about to go to New York actually to produce another album, but one of the band members has gotten suddenly extremely ill, and apparently it's a mysterious illness, so it's sort of scary.
Yeah.
So that's been postponed, of course, for a while.
Okay, well, I won't take up any more of your time. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me, and thanks for many years of wonderful music.
Oh, thank you.
And we certainly look forward to the new album when it comes about.
Yeah, great.
Okay, all the best, Mo.
You too.
And take care. We'll see you later.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.